Today I'm going to talk about my G6-01, and the reason I have two of these today is because this one here, it's my original one, it's my original car, and this one here is my new car. I decided to restore this car to because the old car has plenty of, has been bashed quite a bit. I got a lot of damage here at the roof. So yeah, I bought a new car and I transferred all the hop-ups here to the new car, and I got myself a good looking G6-01 again, and hopefully I'll keep this one better condition. So I thought it was a good chance to be able to compare a stock version versus a modified version side by side, and you can see that. So let's bring in the factory one first. Obviously the first thing you'll notice is these friction shocks here, and how average they are. It's like it barely move. I mean, it does the job, but you're not gonna get any form of consistent handling with this. So if you compare this with this one here, now suspension is way better, much firmer, more consistent, and smoother and linear. So what I'm using here is a DF03 spring set, and I'm using the front part of the spring set. So what I did is I put the hard at the front, hard spring set, and then the medium on the middle, and soft on the rear. Now the reason for that is that under hard braking, the car is gonna want to tip forward, and if it tips forward, it lifts the rear wheel up, and then it loses grip on the back, and harder spring on the front as well will promote a bit more understeering, and if you have understeer, it'll prevent the rollovers more. So the goal of my suspension setup for this car is that I like to run it on tarmac or asphalt as well, and the goal is to prevent as much as rollovers as you can, because the more rollover you get is the more damage you get on your car, and that's something I really want to avoid, because you can see here the damage is pretty rough. Get scratched up all the way here and here. I do have a plan to keep the new car really good condition, is to use one of these bumpers. I think the design, you can find them in your hardware store, and you can put them, I'll stick some here, and maybe around here as well, these clear bumpers. I've got another one here you can try. So I'm gonna put that in. Now, what's next on the list? Another good list of must-have suspension modification is the C-hub. If you can see, sorry, right here. So what that does is that give an 8-degree caster. So an 8-degree caster, so it goes from, I'm not sure what the stock caster is, I think it's actually almost 0. So it goes from this much caster into the wheel leaning back 8 degrees like this. And I guess you can look up YouTube videos about how a caster works, but it promotes better rolling, less rolling resistance at the front, and it changes the angle of the front wheel at full lock, and it does make a huge difference if you put it on the front. I've seen some people installing it on the back as well, but I think that's a waste of money because these things cost a fortune. They're quite expensive because it's the Tamiya version. I think Tamiya is the only one that makes it. So if you want it, you gotta spend the money for it. And next thing I did was I used these, oops, guess you can see it like this. I'll move this away. I used the stainless steel suspension. It's what is it? Stainless steel suspension shaft set for TL01, part number 53301, and that replaces the crappy joint that you see around here. And you see you can it uses the C clips, and they give much smoother movement because they're much lower stainless steel, it's lower friction, much smoother movement. I'll show you the original one. You can see the original one are these crappy screw pins here, and they're not very good, and they tend to rust, and they also wobble a bit, not as tight and not as smooth. And I'll replace this hinge pins here with the what is it, the support bridge. That's pretty good. Gives it a nice look, and you also get that extra shaft here. So you need that part and the TL suspension shaft set, and that should cover the entire chassis. Next, I use the Camber Arm Adjustment. So Camber Arm Adjustment is the 54667 GF01 Camber Arm Adjustment. Now what that does is replace these camber arms right here and right here, and it gives a 3-degree camber. You can see, so it's leaning like that a bit more. You can see the stock here has no camber. Oh, this car's looking a little sad, doesn't it? Yeah, you can see there's no camber here, and this car here has a nice fixed stance. Looks quite mean actually. Well, I guess because it has a servo here as well on it. And what else? Oh, you may notice that I used the ball joint shaft from the MO6. This is this one right here. Can you see it? So I use that for the front only, and what that does is it moves the suspension from this point here more outwards to this point. And that does a couple of things. It makes the damping a lot stiffer, well, a bit more stiffer, not a lot. And at the same time, because the distance between there to there will actually reduce the ride height as well for the front area. While at the back, I left it the same. I actually tried using putting the front there as well, which also reduced the ride height at the back. But after a lot of testing, I think that actually makes the handling worse, because it makes the rear too stiff, and then the ride height as well makes it, I don't know, it increases my chances of rolling over, which not good. But ever since I moved it back to the normal position for the back and the middle one as well, and which raises the ride height, having that greater ride height at the back with the bit of droop as well. Actually fixes a lot of my handling problem, because before I had these ball joints on all three and it wasn't that great. It was quite stiff and you don't get much warning before it roll over. It will just all of a sudden tip. What's next? Another must have part is that I'm running a Hobby Wing 1060 quick run with a super stock motor. What I have here is a super stock TZ, I think. I think BZ is the ideal one, but this is the one I had about lying about, and all the super stock motor, it's nearly the same, but BZ is the one you want if you want to use a super stock. What else? So if you're running the super stock, highly recommend you get this the heatsink, because it will get hot and it can overheat due to the high gear ratio of the G6-01. Oh, I guess I should have started with this. I should have mentioned that I have converted this car to four-wheel drive. As you know, this is supposed to be a six-wheel drive. Sorry, can you see here? So this, the front wheel is freewheeling. Because there's no gear at the front, so I'm having this as a four-wheel drive only. So only drives the middle gear, the middle tire and the rear tire, and yeah, it's been working out really well for me. I'll show you in the outdoor video later. The handling is really sharp, has a lot more oversteer tendency, like this one here. It's still a six-wheel drive because I converted back. So what I did to convert it into a six-wheel drive as well, if you can see, I put a little, what do you call it? The screw that you normally use for this hinge pin here is the kingpin screw. It's a perfect size, it'll cover up that gap. My kingpin here is I've replaced it with a low friction one and a lightweight one, which is quite cool. Highly recommend that one. It's not that expensive. And another thing I added was, let's see, what servo mount. Oh, I have universally assembly shaft, universal on the, since it's only a four-wheel drive, I only need 4 of them, makes things cheaper. So I got one middle back. And the servo mounts here. Right, servo mounts. Highly recommend these. They're a little expensive, but the plastic ones do bend quite a bit. There's a lot of flex and movement with the plastic one. I guess you don't really need it. It's something you can skip. But I like them, and of course you can see the blue, what do you call it? What do you call this? Steering arm. Yes, the steering arm. Steering arms are great. The factory one tend to break. I had my factory one crack before, so I replaced it with this one. Make sure it never breaks again. And another thing I added is foam. So foam inside these tires, the foam tires are really good. You compare that with this one here. So it's the foam tire. It's something really good. Let me show you what it looks like. Can you see it here? But yeah, I got that from pitbullrc.com, and I'll show you. I actually have a list here if you guys want to see. I'll put it on the YouTube description below so you guys know exactly what I use. But the foam tire inserts from Pitbull RC is a 1.9 inch rim, medium density, 4.3 OD, whatever that means. But that's the perfect size for it. And what else? Yeah, another important things, I use the TRF gear putty. The gear putty is for the differential, to make the differential a lot stiffer. You can see here the wheel hardly turns, so it's quite stiff in the back and the rear. The stiffer gear differential is a lot better for acceleration, braking, but you don't want it to be locked either. You compare that with the factory one here. Sorry. So this is a lot more free moving. You can use the AW grease in the differential to make it move less, but I prefer the gear putty. It's well worth it. It's a lot more stickier and it lasts longer. Has a nice smooth movement feel to it. What else? Another thing I did was I replaced the you get these, what is it, low friction kingpin as well for these the joints here. Can you see that? These ones here, and I installed them here and here for the camber arms. They're great. They replace they replace these crappy screws here, which is not as precise and not as smooth. So there's a bit more movement there. But this one here, it's nice and solid, feels nice and tight. I guess there's still a little bit of joint movement, but you know, it's not a TRF. It's a G6-01. What else? Use the 20 pinion gear as well. Yeah, I think that's getting close to it. Well, the other thing that I've spent a lot of time doing is shimming. Shimming is when you put little tiny spaces in between these joints here, while at the same time you want to make sure you don't shim too much to restrict movement, but you want to shim enough so that you lose all the play, lose as much play as you can. Not that important, I guess, for an off-road truck like this, but I like to do it. It's but yeah. Oh, one more thing. Right, one more thing I should talk about is the electronics. What I'm using here is a radial link receiver with the hobby wing, and I also use this, what do you call it? Sorry, I forgot what it's called. It's a capacitor that will help the servo to work a bit better. I'll show you what I mean here. So if I turn this on, now Now if I remove this, you can hear the servo has that static sound. Now if I put this capacitor thing back in, it will stabilize the voltage and the servo calms down and it's nice and silent. I only seem to need this with the Hobby Wing Quick Run. If I use a Tamiya ESC, my servo seems fine. I'm using a Savox servo, I think a 0254. They're pretty good. They're just enough for this car. Right, another thing I should show you is the car turning radius. Oops, I'm using the wrong model. So I'm using the 4-wheel steering, but I'm only using the rear wheel steering, only slightly. I'm using about 20% on the rear. Can you see that? So that's how much you would need, because any more it'll be too easy for the car to roll over. I could get a bit more steering at the front and the rear, but too much steering, well, it's way too much cornering, and depending how fast you go, the car just won't be able to handle it. You can see that it's only 4-wheel drive. Right, so let's go over all the part number. I'll link to a sheet with paper on the description here, and I can tell you which, if I were to do this all over again, and if you don't want to spend the large sum of money modifying this car too much, but at the same time you want to make it fun, this is what I would recommend you should do. And I'll just mark through all the hop-ups that you must have. So we'll go for it. Let's see if you can fix this up. I think I would definitely get this. That's the steering arm. Servo saver, not really. The factory servo saver is pretty good. I would get one of these, maybe just one, or you could, depending, for the front only. This thing here is for the servo saver as well. It's supposed to allow you to bring it down, but it's really expensive and you don't really need it. And what I've done instead is that I have an old vintage part. If you turn this up, if you can see, because you want to bring the ball joint a bit lower, and you can do that just by putting spacers onto the ball joint. But I got this part right here, and it brings the ball joint just low enough. And I've also done the same thing at the back here. Can't really see it. Sorry, not looking at the camera. Can you see that here? Right here. Right, so don't buy this. And this thing here is supposed to put on the front. I have one of those and I think they're useless. It's cosmetic only. Don't buy that. And this heatsink, these heatsinks fantastic. It's one of the only way you can cool down your engine other than putting on the fan. So yes, buy that. It's cosmetic. Steering buckle, yes, definitely. Makes life way easier. These are the kingpins, I think you call them, and this is the part that I mentioned where I put in. So I put it in here for the camber arm. I think you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think you may need 3 of them to do the whole car. These one here is just parts. Don't use these motors. None of these ones. I mean, this one's the best one if you don't want to go to super stocks, the GT motor. The others are too slow. That one, no. This one, yes. This is the steering bridge shaft, and it goes, sorry, at the front here, right there. They're fantastic. They give you the low friction and also stronger support for your front tires. That one, so you get one of these, and this one here is the steering, the low friction shaft set. You just need one of those. And this one here, I highly recommend it. It is expensive, but it's worth it. It totally transformed the car. And these kingpin here, it's a nice have. I would get it. And this thing here, this gives the toe, I forgot how much it gives the toe. I think it was 2 or 3 degrees for the rear tire. I actually don't run any toe at the rear. Sorry. You can see it's mostly straight. Oops. Like that. You can see it's mostly straight. What this part does is it'll give you a toe in for this tire here, the middle tire, because that's the part goes right here. So it brings it in like that, which makes the car more stable in the straight line, but you don't need it. It's more reason why is because you got 4 wheels at the back, and all it will do is just increase drag and slow your car down in the straight lines. And you kind of want, if you want to go fast, don't get that. And it doesn't really, so avoid this one. Let's bring that closer. Avoid this one. Camber set, yes, and you'll need 2 of them. And this is the ball joint shaft, and I say yes, you only need 1 of them for the front. Now the suspension, the CVA shock, you either get the CVA, which is come in a pair of 2, or you can get the aluminium shock. The problem with the aluminium shock is that it is a lot better, but you can make the CVA work just as well as the aluminium. I did have both. I had the aluminium, but I decided, because what happens when you buy the aluminium, you need to buy 2 of these, and then you end up with a pair of shock that you can't use, and it seems like a waste of money to me. So instead of buying 2 of these, I would buy, cross that out, I would buy this one, and you buy 3 of these. So that's what I've done, and I'll show you how to make it feel and work just like the aluminium one. I was saying with the CVA shocks, the problem with the CVA shocks is that it comes with these pistons here, and these pistons are quite, you know, average. And if you use either the 3-hole or the 2-hole pistons, you'll find that it's too loose. So what you need to do is you need to use the 1-hole piston, this one here, when you use it on this, and you need quite a hard silicone oil damper. I use the 900 cc Tamiya oil damper. So you get 1 bottle of this, so you'll need to buy one of these as well to cover it. And if you use the 1-hole piston, it'll give you similar feeling to the aluminium damper with the, I think it was 3 or 4 piston with the aluminium damper, because the aluminium damper is actually quite stiff with the yellow oil. To get that level of consistency, you'll need to use 1 piston with a 900 or harder. Right, let's move on. And then the spring. In here, in this sheet here, they recommend you get the TRF 501X spring, the front spring. But I use the DF03. I have both. I've tried this one here, and this one here is better for off-road. And the DF03 is a bit stiffer. The DF03 set, you get a bit stiffer spring, and I find that it works better for tarmac. So you get this one for off-road, the white ones from the TRF 501X for off-road. And if you do a bit of tarmac or asphalt, I recommend you get the DF03. And this universals here, I would get that too. They're great. They reduce the chatter, and it just works better. They are expensive though, but if you ever get them, I will only get 2 of them. If you decide to go, if you're staying as a 6-wheel drive, you would just put them in the front and rear, and not the middle. The middle one, you know, there's no steering involved, you don't really need them. This one here, you would get them to replace your existing part. This is like the steel version, I think. It's a lot stronger. You'll find the aluminium version can sometimes wear out over time, and if it starts wearing out, you replace them with this one. Now let's go around the back. I think we're running out of options. This one, not really needed. It's nice to have. This one here, this is pretty cheap. You need 2 of these. This goes inside your gearbox, or replaces the fixed solid one. They're real cheap. Might as well do it. I don't know if it makes much of a difference, but it reduces your stress on your drivetrain, so let's do a little bit of difference. And what else? Oh, and you'll need the ball bearings, of course. It goes without saying. This one is full ball rest. I don't know what, but don't buy the Tamiya ones. Actually, that's right. Don't buy the Tamiya one. Get it from RC Jazz. That's what I recommend. They sell a good set for the G6-01, and really good price for them too. And they're, I don't know, just as good. And you need the 22th pinion. That's pretty much your only option. The factory wants 18 pinion. 22th pinion will give you more speed. And that's it. I guess apart from that, as I mentioned before, there's things that's not on that list. Is the foam tire insert here, and what else? Or the gear putty. Should get that one too. And everything else was inside the list. And that's about it. Oh, I guess another thing you should mention is that I got spacers here. I added about a 3mm spacer at the front. Oh, sorry, can you see it? 3mm spacers here for preload. Little bit more preload at the front to stop it from diving in, because the moment it dives in like that, the rear wheel can lift, and I lose the rear traction, the car would spin out. I guess it doesn't only make sense if you're using the 4-wheel drive steering. If you don't have that problem with if you're doing six-wheel drive. I'll show you later what I mean, but it's a ton of fun to set up this guy as a 4-wheel drive, and I'll show it to you in the next video. Alright, I hope this video helped you with making a decision on how to modify your G6-01, and see you next video. Thank you.